Welcome to If the Public Only Knew, the show that pulls back the curtain on what it really takes to build and lead a business. Host Gary Cinderbrandt sits down with some of today's most dynamic CEOs, founders, and leaders to dig into their origin stories, hard-earned lessons, and the missteps that nearly derailed it all. These are unfiltered, no-hype conversations designed to inspire, challenge, and fuel your own journey. Now here's your host, Gary Cinderbrandt.
Welcome back to If the Public Only Knew. I'm your host, Gary Cinderbrandt. Pretty excited about today's guest, Dr. Priya Nalkur, founder of the RoundTable Institute. And one of the issues that you don't see before we hit the record button is kind of how I'm chatting with my guests beforehand. And it would have been very easy for you and I just to continue talking throughout the entire time we have allotted, because I think you and I are aligned on a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So what I'd like you to do is just kind of describe what you do, who you are, how it works, and then maybe go back a little bit and let's figure out how we got here. Anyway,
Sure.
welcome to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you.
Thanks so much,
How did
Gary.
it all start?
How
Tell
did
us
it all
about the
start?
Institute.
Well, should I start with the first question? Like, what do I do?
Sure.
Backwards? Okay. So the professional line is RoundTable Institute is a coaching and facilitation firm that works with leaders, teams, and enterprises to maximize their potential. But as I think about the personal side, I really think that what we're doing is helping people be who they've always known they could be through great conversations, through encouraging them to tell their stories and share their stories and hear other people's stories. Very similar to what you're doing. It's very powerful, meaningful, rewarding work, as you know. It's deep work. I think we're just doing what we all learned in kindergarten to do, which is to be kind to each other, love each other, know ourselves, and listen to each other. So we're just bringing back kindergarten.
So let's go back. Let's wind the
Yeah.
clock back a little bit.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the version of you before you knew this was the direction you wanted your life to take. At some point, did you grow up thinking about this? Was it a high school dream?
Of course not. No.
Where did this come from?
I am the child of Indian immigrants who moved to Canada with dreams for their future children, who gave up their entire histories and lives to start new so that they can build a better future for their children. So that meant the communities I grew up in, we were conditioned to grow up to be doctors, lawyers, engineers. I had it in my head that I was going to be a pediatrician all my life until I was 19 years old. When I went through college, got into medical school, went on a backpacking trip through Europe with some dear friends, and a friend of mine had an accident and tripped and fell and gashed her knee open, and I saw blood and I said, oh my gosh, I can't be a doctor. Nearly got woozy and I said, something's got to change. But even before that, I had basically failed out of high school, lost motivation, wasn't interested in school anymore. My parents didn't know what to do with me. And my dad at the time had done a training program with Tony Robbins. And he said, I think you need to meet this guy. And he signed up for me to have coaching with Tony Robbins. And it changed everything for me. It opened up the possibility.
Why?
It opened up the possibility that I had been navigating my life through fear and not through what I wanted. The idea of being a doctor was not my idea. It was my parents and their generations, the previous generation's idea of what success looked like. Coaching with Tony Robbins taught me that there's more to success and fulfillment than fulfilling my parents' goals and their parents' goals. And I loved the way my coach treated me. They believed in me. They knew I had a story to share. They knew I had potential that I hadn't yet reached. They knew that I could be bigger than I was being, and that I was playing small. And the effect they had on me, I just remember jotting down in my diary when I was about 17 years old. I want to have the same effect on other people. I didn't know what that meant. But it turned out for me that the right answer was through teaching people and coaching people.
You bring up so many points and so many different observations I've had in my career. And you and I are of a different vintage in that I've been around for a bit longer than you. But your concept of what you just described so resonates with me. You knew this was what you wanted to do. It struck you. It was a really important tipping point in your life, but you didn't know how to do it.
That's
That
right.
didn't stop you, did it?
Oh no, no, there's a lot of things we don't know how to do. But I've never, that has been, I'm blessed and lucky that that has been a characteristic of mine to want to figure it out. And I will relentlessly pursue figuring it out. And even when I figure it out, I don't take it for granted and expect that there's more to learn from that. And that learning mindset has really been pivotal in the way that I lead and in the way that I build friendships and relationships with folks.
I could not agree more. There is a neurophysical or neuroscientific connection around what you just said.
Hmm.
And I've commented on this and I've actually published on it because I had coming up at Merrill Lynch at a very young age, I set a goal for myself at the time that I had no idea how I was going to do, and other people laughed at it. They said, "There's no possible way, maybe 15 years from now." And I was like, "No, I'm going to do it in 5."
Yeah.
Well, it took me 6. And it was only just very recently that I've really started to study as I started to build this kind of behavioral analytics tool that you and I spoke about. I really started to study, well, why was I able to do that? Well, first, I made it an important part of what I wanted to do. And secondly, I kept it present in my mind literally every day.
Yeah.
Did I have a plus or a minus towards that goal? And then when I started to think it through, we take in, as you probably know, a lot more information minute by minute, second by second that our brain has any chance of processing.
Yeah.
But when we decide what's most important, there's a filter called the reticular activation system, which processes those 40 bits of information. You just have to decide, is this important enough for me to keep focusing on? And then all of a sudden, your subconscious starts to come up with solutions that, like, hell, why didn't I see that before?
Yeah.
Another
Yeah.
good
You just
example. Yeah,
described how manifestation works. It's not magic.
no,
We have a confirmation bias that subconsciously works in our favor when we're focusing on it. Because you're right, at any given moment, there's an infinite number of stimuli in our environment. Our brain needs to make shortcuts, but consciously we can decide what to focus on. And really, that's all we have to do. And that's
I,
what I tell my clients all the time.
you're absolutely correct. I love what you're saying. There's there's 2 books by Andy Weir. One is called The
Mm,
Martian. The other is Project Hail Mary. Um, and I just love the way Andy Weir approaches it because I don't know if you, then there was a movie that came out also.
yes,
I don't know, did you see the movie? Happen
I
to see the
did. And I
movie?
read the
Yeah,
book, The Martian, too. Yeah.
good, excellent book.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the movie, when he's talking to the NASA trainees, he said, you make the decision, space is going to kill you and you're going to die. He goes, and that's when you get to work. You solve
Yeah.
one problem. Then you have another one. Solve the next problem. Solve the next problem.
Yeah.
And that was such an interesting display of how his goal was obviously to survive, but how he iterated to those solutions constantly, having no idea where it was going to come from,
Yeah.
you know, right through digging up the radioactive isotope. So I think that's exactly in line with what you're describing.
Yes. And one thing I've been thinking about recently, to your point, like you solve one, then you do the next, and constant iteration. I think it takes endurance. And what I'm really curious about and don't have an answer for is why do some of us endure and others don't? But endurance has been, for me, my secret sauce. I run marathons, I climb mountains, I run businesses, right? And all of these require endurance. And we also need to know, even as we're focusing on the thing with relentless pursuit, we have to know when to adjust the focus. Sometimes we're out of focus and we need to look a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left and see a clearer picture. But I'll tell my clients all the time, like they're trying to control things that are completely out of their control. But what you can control is what you focus on and what you believe and how you approach it. So stop trying to control other people's reactions to you and the weather and the traffic and all these other things. It's a waste of your time and energy.
And I think you've answered your own question on endurance. Because if you've got that thing front and center, no matter what it is, you've always got your North Star. You're always going to come back
Mhm.
to it. And you can always assess, is the behavior I'm displaying currently, is this accretive to what I'm trying to do? Is it neutral or is it destructive to what I'm trying to do?
Yeah.
And again, I think it comes down to where you decide to focus. It
Yeah.
is so easy to get knocked off. It happens to me all the time.
Yeah.
Um, but you have to come back and say, okay, what are the most important things for me to do right now that support my vision for the longer term? And that absolutely is when there's two areas where I'm happy. When I'm thinking creatively about problem solving, either for a client or a consulting client that I'm working with, and when I'm in front of a big group of people who are
Hmm.
skeptical and I can get them to start to think about things in a different way.
Isn't that the best? There's nothing better, I think, when you have an audience who is challenging opposition on skeptical.
Oh, yeah,
To me, it's the precipice of deeper wisdom collectively.
absolutely. I think I love that term. I'm stealing that term immediately.
Feel it. Yeah.
Love that. That's great.
Because it's
Um,
an opening. And I think that we can get scared because it can feel like a social threat when somebody is opposing us.
yeah.
But if we approach it as an invitation and a gift to connection, we're going to develop shared wisdom and potential.
And this is why you and I could have talked for 2 hours before we even started this thing.
Right.
So let's go back. You go through Tony Robbins and you
Yeah.
realize you've got this aha moment from this point forward.
Yeah.
And this is prior to college, right? And medical
Yeah, this
school.
is before college. I barely got into college because, like I said, I had
Okay.
dropped out of high school.
Right.
Tony Robbins got me back on the horse and realized, okay, at least can I just get into get into college? I got into college. I did my undergraduate degree in physical education.
Okay.
I was good at sports. And that also, the sports psychology also got me to where I
Yeah.
am today, by the way. This idea of winning and persisting, like the way athletes think about their sport was ingrained in me from a very young age. Um, got into medical school somehow. And then, like I said, turned it down, deferred it because I couldn't stand the sight of blood.
It was like the dog caught the car. What
Yes.
do I do now?
But it was good for my psychology to prove that
Sure.
I could do it.
Okay.
And then be able to tell the generations before me, like, yeah, the seeds you planted were worthwhile. I did it. And now it's time for me to break the pattern.
Okay.
And I decided to pursue something else that was more interesting to me,
Did
which was,
you, did you, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's really fascinating.
yeah,
When you realized medical school was not for you, was it being held against that comparative goal that you took on at 17, that it didn't quite comport with that? And maybe the thing that, you saw the sight of blood, I'm done, I got to go back to what I'm doing. Or had that alternative not been there, right?
it's a
Life would have
great
been different.
question. And I am sure it had something to do with that decision. I remember trying to convince myself, can I still do that work of inspiring people and bringing out people's potential as a physician? And I remember thinking, sure, I could, but I'd also heard enough stories to suggest that it would be really hard.
Yeah,
And it wasn't necessarily the path of least resistance, it was probably the path of most resistance.
sure.
And who wants to choose that,
No,
right?
no one.
Um,
So you're
yeah.
out of medical school and now
Yeah.
your goal is still out there. Where do you go to start to get the training and the experience to become
Well,
you?
yeah. So I from there I went to Yale and I did my master's in public health
Okay.
because it was enough of the flavor of still being adjacent to medicine. So I didn't completely give up on that. Because let's be honest, I'm a child of
Sure.
immigrants. I am fortified by obligation to my
I
ancestry.
understand.
Um, and so I didn't completely give that up, but there was a thread about public health that was really inspiring to me. The possibility of inspiring masses to be healthier
Yeah.
and to take control of their health and not have to rely on systems and other people to empower ourselves to make better and healthier
Okay.
decisions. I had a professor in that program who encouraged me and said, your potential is way bigger than a master's degree. And I worked at UNICEF and I did a summer internship at the United
Hmm.
Nations. And there I also had a mentor who suggested to me that he felt stuck in this job and that he could do so much more. And I didn't want to be stuck like my professors at Yale. I didn't want to be stuck with like my mentors at UNICEF. I wanted freedom. Um, and I wanted freedom, but I also was very um, struck by the intellectual pursuit of human development. And I think that my master's in public health laid the foundation for me to be much more curious about how humans make decisions, how they're motivated to take care of themselves, aspire, and reach their potential.
So, but
And
up
I
till
want
now, we have no experience in public speaking, no experience in taking complex interpersonal skills and making them simplistic in small bites. So
no.
how do we go from an MPH in UNICEF and public health to this?
Yeah, I applied for a PhD. The intellectual pursuit was very, very interesting to me.
Okay.
I applied to three schools, Columbia University, and no, actually, I only applied to two schools, Harvard University and Columbia University.
Okay.
And I remember I interviewed at Columbia, and the professor said to me, you're very smart, you're very capable, but you should pack your bags and go back home. And those words struck me as motivation instead of rejection. And I said, watch me, lady. Felt like such a racist, discriminating thing to say to me.
Probably because it was.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Um,
which
and
PhD program were you applying for?
so that was developmental psychology at Columbia. I had also applied to human development at
Okay.
Harvard. They both ended up accepting me,
Huh.
and I went to Harvard.
That's awesome.
Um,
So
and
your PhD is in human development?
yes,
Cool.
yeah.
Along
And
the
there,
way,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
what was your
there,
Go ahead.
Harvard taught me how to think. Um,
Really?
yes, how to ask questions, how to listen better, how to be in dialogue, how to share stories. It really um, refined my understanding of myself. And it forced you, when you write a dissertation, you have to excavate your life, even if your
Hmm.
dissertation has nothing to do with your personal narrative. You've got to excavate your life and understand your motivations and your values and align your work with that. And that's hard work. Um,
Never ends.
it never ends. It never ends. And so I look at my dissertation now, I'm like, what a work in progress I was at the time. But I was really interested. What I did in my dissertation was I went to Tanzania. I wanted to study what motivates people to achieve when they're in the most dire of situations. So I compared street children with rehabilitated children and children who never lived on the street and lived at home with their families to understand, what motivates them to get out of hard situations. So I was looking at things like resilience, protective systems, choices, empowerment. And these kids inspired me. The kids who lived on the
Mm.
street empowered me and really inspired me. They would say things to me like, well, you're going to take this research that we're giving to you and you're giving us a pair of shoes and a lunch. And you're going to go back to the United States and write books about this and be on TV and make a ton of money. And what do we get? A lunch and a pair of shoes, because we're sharing our stories with you. And it really stopped me, made me question my motivations, made me question my whole story, the reason I was doing things. I involved them in my research in a more participatory way. I really understood what it meant to be a participant observer. And those were the seeds of being a coach. The seeds were
That was
being,
your on-ramp at that
yeah,
point, and you didn't know it
absolutely.
at the
Didn't know
time.
it. I was doing empirical research.
Of course,
I
that's what everybody
thought I
does.
was doing empirical research.
Right.
And these kids were teaching me that there was a way to do research that was more humane, that was more human centered, and didn't prioritize the findings over the human. And that became really important to me. So I shifted and started to prioritize the human over the findings.
I don't know if I agree that you shifted. I think you started to fill in the blank spaces against that larger goal because
Yeah,
you didn't have the experience to reflect on or, the precipice of wisdom to kind of walk through that door until you actually had human interaction with essentially it could have been a group of kids in Tanzania or it could have been a bunch of corporate executives in a boardroom.
totally.
It's kind of the same thing. And then you're placing in your mind, okay, whoa, this kind of goes here, this kind of goes there. And I want to go back to something you said earlier, which is, and I'll paraphrase it, but when we stop our thirst for learning, I think we start to leave the earth. I think we expire. I think that's
I,
the reason to get up.
yes, I totally agree. If we're not growing, yes, we're dying. And I think I really appreciate what you just did, which was to draw the line in my narrative about how actually this wasn't accidental. It wasn't incidental either. It was always meant to be, given the breakthrough I had with my coach back when I
Sure,
was 17. Yeah.
absolutely. That's out here. And then you iterate, don't know how we're going to get there. Medical school, not medical school, Columbia, Harvard, PhD, pack your bags, go home. And you're like,
Yeah.
no, because this goal out here is so meaningful to you. But at the time you were interviewing or you were basically deciding the direction you were going to go, you didn't even know about Tanzania.
No way. No way.
You
Yeah.
didn't know about a kid saying, we're going to give you all this great stuff and we get a pair of shoes and lunch and you're going to go be famous.
Yeah.
And all of a
Yeah.
sudden you're like, whoa,
Yes. What
I
am I
can't
doing?
fix that. Right. I can't fix
Get
that. But what
back.
am I doing?
Yeah. These are really important moments. And I wrote about that and published about that particular moment because it meant I had to have a homecoming. And the homecoming
Yeah.
was the moment of when I was 17 and got that kind of care from my coach and wanted to reciprocate
Yeah.
and was pursuing that reciprocation all through my 20s.
So you get your PhD, you defend it. My guess is you probably learned a lot during the defense as you were studying it and rewriting it. You're
Yes.
probably
Yeah.
having a few aha moments.
Yeah, I mean, going through a Harvard doctoral dissertation process means you build very, very thick skin, which helps you as an entrepreneur. You can take any feedback, any rejection, and you're like, I got this,
It's
right?
fine.
So
Well, listen, how else are you going to learn?
that's it. And so
Uh,
it really helps, it builds your resilience, it
yeah.
builds your resolve. You have to be confident in your beliefs and in your intellect.
But
And I
also have the respect for people that challenge them,
totally,
not try and meet
otherwise,
them head on, to just try and get them to maybe take a little bit of an off-axis look at what you're saying without the confirmation bias, without the recency bias, without the stuff that drives most people's decisions daily. Okay,
yes.
so now we finish our PhD.
Yes. And
Then
then
what?
the natural thing is to apply for tenure track positions,
Okay.
which I did. I must
Okay.
have applied to 380 of them. I got one callback, got one callback,
Right.
and I went on the interview, and it was an absolute disaster. And my body knew this wasn't what I was supposed to do. And there were other ways. And I had this mentor who said, listen, you're a brilliant educator. You're a great thinker. You don't have to be in the ivory tower. In fact, you'd be limited. Go find a way to do this in a way that is aligned with who you are.
Yeah.
And that felt so abstract, so theoretical to me. It almost felt idealistic. But he encouraged me so I did get a job eventually at a university, but he encouraged me to take a sabbatical and get my coach certification. And it felt almost like I needed to prove myself with the Harvard PhD and getting into medical school before I could do this coaching thing.
So the coaching certification, I think in your case is just more of initials after your name, whether they were there or not.
Yeah, it wasn't even that. It was actually, I will say this, Harvard taught me how to think, but it almost also imposed these parameters on my thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Coach training bust through those parameters and asked me to be far more radical and creative and far more fearless. At Harvard, you've got to do things the empirical way. You've got to do things the data oriented way. You've got to have checks and balances. You've got to defend your ideas. Coaching is like, no, use your intuition, be creative, use the other side of your brain. You don't have to be data driven. It blew my mind to think in this way.
It's really fun because you're looking at it as almost a binary. And I know
Yes,
in my own career, it was iterative
yes,
because it was, you know, you had the PhD, I had the School of Hard Knocks, which means I just had to continuously eliminate that which was not working. And then when I started teaching large groups, I'd had a lot of experience in dealing with clients of all shapes and sizes. And I found in the larger groups, as long as I didn't make it all about me and I could keep the group engaged, because I always love that, you know, they say, well, you know, what is it you're going to say? And I say, I can tell you exactly what I'm going to say right after I say it.
yeah,
Because I don't work from a script. I don't work from notes. I just go out
same.
there and I don't read my PowerPoint slides and I try and have fun. I try
Yeah,
and be challenging.
fun is
And
a value of mine too. Connection. I
yeah,
believe, and I've seen it, you can connect with a room full of 2,000 people on a
but
very personal, intimate
I
basis.
think you've got to have a little bit more than that coaching certification. Um, so I'm on various coaching platforms.
Yeah.
And when I read about the other coaches at Morgan Stanley, let's say, they all have coaching certifications. I don't, but
Yeah.
I'm the only guy out there that actually ran a highly successful book of clients and also taught other people how to do it.
Yeah.
So mine is I dig down in the weeds because I know every motivation a financial advisor has. If you were to
Mm,
x-ray our brains, you would probably see feral hamsters. Our attention span is measured in microseconds. So I know
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But the concept of being able to communicate that to a group of people who are circumspect, professionally circumspect, because the job of a good advisor is protect your client always.
Mm,
So anybody that's up in front of a room, they see, what are you trying to sell me?
yeah. Yeah.
And I never took that approach. I took the approach of, look, this is what I do. This is a way to do it. Doesn't mean you have to do it the same way. But if your goals out here are to become super important to a select group of families that you can stay with forever and help them bring additional meaning or expansion to their lives by taking care of their money for them, and you find satisfaction in that, you're in the right place.
Mm,
So, and you've got to be able to get literally creative and in there.
yes.
What you're describing sounded more like you got permission to access a part of you that was there all along.
Yes. I thank you for saying that. That's exactly what it was. It was a freedom, it was a liberation, it was an unleashing of something that was always there. But my previous systems did not allow, it kept me compartmentalized and
Oh
coach.
no. I think your previous way you were doing it, you were filling in the blanks from age
That's right. I
17
love that.
forward, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's you're not
Yes.
there yet, but you got to a spot. You know, it's like Mark Watney in The Martian. Got to a spot, you're going to solve one problem. Now you're going to go solve another problem. But
Yeah.
you didn't
Yeah.
have to visualize how that was going to happen. I
That's
mean,
right.
during your PhD, I don't think you were thinking about getting certified as a coach.
No, of course not. No.
There's my
Yes.
point. So
Yeah.
you get your coach certification. Let's come present day. When does the institute start and why does it start?
Yeah. So I, got my certification, joined another firm, and when I joined that firm, I learned the basics of business development and learned that I was good at it. 2016, November 9th, I woke up in the morning and I was on a business trip coaching a group in Atlanta. And that was the day that we learned of the presidential election here in the United States. And I woke up that morning, and I said, what I'm doing is going to be important to this change that we're going through. And the voices of women and people of color are going to be categorically minimized and dismissed under this administration. And I'm not going to let that happen. I'm not going to watch it happen without doing something. I have all these skills, I have all this potential. I'm going to take what I know about coaching and focus specifically on women and people of color. And so RoundTable Institute was born that day. I registered it that morning. I missed my flight because I was busy getting registering the business,
Right.
paying all of that. I was like, fine, I can miss my flight. Um, and the very next day, got three new clients because I
You're
reached
kidding.
out. Well, I reached out to them and I
Okay.
said, this is what I'm doing. And started the I had already started the conversation, but that day there was so much momentum and so much resistance and opposition that it was important to leverage and turn into the positive force that had already been planted before.
So these were
So
individual clients, or were they corporate clients, or how did that develop?
corporate clients. My
Okay. And
first one was Visa.
what
Yep.
was the mandate? What did they want you to do?
Yeah, so came in, I said, here's what I think we should do. We need to be in conversation. We need to have brave conversations with each other, and I can facilitate it. And what that means is people are going to come together and learn skills to communicate better according to the leadership competencies that your HR has so thoughtfully put together. And we're going to make them better leaders together. But they have to be willing to be courageous. They have to be willing to have each other's backs. I gave them a list of operating principles. And I said, if you can agree to these things, then we can do this work together.
And you come into the room and you're the expert from outside, and people are like, okay, we're here. What are we going to learn? And I'm
Yeah.
certain you didn't get a lot of smiles, probably a lot of people that were a little circumspect. What are we
Oh,
doing
yeah.
here?
Oh, well, because you can imagine that I love resistance. By that point in my career, I loved it so much, and I always saw it as an opportunity. Whereas I saw other coaches get scared of it. Like, what do I do? Oh my gosh, they're not going to like me. I don't care about liking me anymore. What I care about is doing good work together and maximizing your potential. And if you like me along the way, that's a bonus. Turns out people do like me when you're
Well,
that.
you give them, they'll have a long-held belief, and it might be parochial for them, and it's very difficult. First impressions are very difficult to change.
Yes, I
And people
agree.
don't like to rethink things. So when I think about experiences like you're having now, I doubt you went right up to somebody who gave you an answer you didn't like and said, no, you're wrong and I'm right. That's not going to work.
Of course not. Yeah.
But along the lines of, okay, well, let's see who else thinks this way. It's like, Charlie,
That's
do
the
you agree with
question.
Tina? Right. How would you look at this? Then all of a sudden you start to get a little peer interaction.
Yeah.
And now you've got a group of kind of disorganized generative ideas. And you
Yeah.
go, well, what happens if we take what you said, you point to the person you disagree with, kind of shave off a little here, a little bit there, a little bit there,
Yeah.
take all these, what's that look like now from your perspective?
Yeah.
And all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's, well, I can kind of see why they look at it that way.
Yeah. And we do
Um,
it physically. Like, so I think what you just said is 50% of the equation, right? So the first secret is this question, who else feels this way? You get
mhm.
some agreement, but then you have to ask, who feels differently? And then you get the opposition and you see the range and diversity in the room. And you get people, you say, okay, that side feels like this, that side feels like this. Let's all get up out of our chairs and go over to that side and feel what it's like. Let's actually embody this perspective, even if we disagree with it. Now let's all go over to the other side and embody it. And then people are like, oh,
Yeah, that's when they start to like you.
well, they start to like each other and they start
Right,
to like
exactly.
themselves. They're not afraid of themselves anymore.
Yeah, it's
And
you
all we've
really,
done
yeah.
is provided a little bit of structure.
It was there all along, but I
Yes.
think that the brilliance of what you're doing and why it's so important is everyone has the capacity to be whoever they want every day of their lives. I don't care what your IQ is. I don't care. You control those decisions. You got one life. You decide what you want to do with it. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. If you decide tomorrow is going to look the same as today, it is going to look the same as today.
Yeah.
But if you wake up saying, I wonder what I'm going to learn today, or I wonder what's going to happen today, those are really great days. And I
Yeah.
think you discovered back at 17 when it unlocked it in you, and I don't think you could have even defined it at that point. Um, we talk about stoicism, we talk about endurance. They all have to be driven by what's between your ears.
Mm,
And I think for your journey of discovery is fascinating.
mm,
And the fact of what you built and to empower people that sadly are now subject to an administration that not only wants to disempower, I mean, if it was up to these idiots, they'd throw everybody out.
yeah.
But fortunately, the totalitarian and authoritarian regimes, as scary as they are, can't succeed if the people behind them um, basically are, can't break into triple digits with their IQ. And that's, I think, why our democracy survives at this point.
Yeah.
Um, and why I think the ability to think expansively, longer term, that you stimulate is so critically important.
Yeah.
So is most of your work now done face-to-face speaking engagements? How do you get those engagements? Do you have internal coaching programs? How does the whole institute come together?
Yeah, thank you. So I do a lot of the speaking engagements, but we do, the core of our work is coaching, but not just one-on-one. We do team coaching and enterprise coaching too. We do a lot of facilitation too, and all of our facilitation is custom, right? Which means there's no off-the-shelf way
Sure.
that we can offer facilitation. But many teams are going through protracted conflicts that are preventing them from reaching their potential. But if they can just see that the conflict is the signal that they're close to their potential, they can invest a little bit of time and money and effort and really get to their potential in an accelerated way. And that's our philosophy. We also have a number of workshops, programs. We certify coaches also because, it turns out that what we were doing with our particular coaching approach was so effective that other coaches were like, well, we want in on this. And then the International Coaching Federation was like, make a program out of that where they can get continuing education credits. So now we're also training coaches, we're training facilitators, we're spreading it out in a way that, ultimately this message has more kind of weight and scope to it.
It's awesome. How many people are in your company with you now?
About 35 around the
Wow,
world.
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I know. I'm so
Good
proud
for
of what we do.
you.
I'm so proud of them. They're like, I learned so much from my team. They're incredible. They're smart. They're fun. They're artistic. They're creative. We have a Grammy Award opera singer who's turned coach on our team. It's incredible.
This is such a great story. I love this story. Also, I mean, the concept of you navigating the unknown and having faith that you were going to get there, even though you didn't know at the time what that path would be. I mean, I think that is the essence of entrepreneurship, intrepidity, and just guts to be
Yeah.
able to do it. And I think it all comes down to one word we haven't mentioned so far, which I think everyone has the ability to demonstrate if they can access it, which is the grit to see it through,
Mm.
that
Yeah.
mental toughness and holding that belief. So,
Yeah.
how do
Thank
people
you.
find you? How do we find out more about you if people want to hire you or
The
get you for a speaking engagement?
roundtableinstitute.com or priyanalkur.com. LinkedIn is also easy. I really do love hearing from people. Nalkur at the roundtableinstitute.com. I write back to everybody who writes to me. I really love staying in touch. I'm not a celebrity. I'm very easy to find, um, and I really love the personal connection. So please do
That's
find
great.
me.
Priya,
Thank
thank you so much for coming on the show.
you.
You're just delightful to talk to, and it's just so enriching to, I think, talk to someone that's our journeys have been different, but I think we look at things a lot and have arrived at a lot of the same conclusions over time. And
Yes.
that's a real honor for me to meet somebody that's been able to do that as
Thank you.
well.
Your
So
questions and
congratulations.
your thematic interpretations were so on point and
Oh,
so
it's just
helpful to me.
I love kind of pulling those things apart.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. You've been listening to If the Public Only Knew. Our guest today has been Dr. Priya Nalkur, founder of the RoundTable Institute. Just inspiring to talk to. Priya, thanks so much again for joining
Thanks,
me.
Gary.
Thanks for tuning in to If the Public Only Knew. Don't forget to follow the show and share it with anyone who's ready for the real raw stories behind the business successes. Join Gary next time for another powerful conversation that will leave you inspired and ready to take action.